both of us kind of started before the AI era, and now AI software development has made what we're working on far more important than ever before.
Vibe coding, as people think about it, it doesn't work on production code.
Yes.
Like, just full stop.
It becomes almost an exercise in like engineering management of like, do you have to like one-on-one with all of your agents, or what does that look like?
The prompt should tell the agent how to do the engineering.
Yep.
Is like what we've moved towards.
Much more like imperative prompting.
I have this theory that code review is gonna be the new bottleneck. Like, it's
I
always
think it is already.
How much of code review do you think will be done by an agent versus done by a human?
Humans are going to be in the loop for a long time.
Welcome to the General Podcast, the show where there's no host, no script, just the best builders talking about what they do and why they do it.
We met at the last company that I founded, a company called Self-Made. Merrill joined as a product manager, our first product manager there. So we worked together, I don't know, when was that? Like, over 5 years ago.
Yeah,
maybe 7 years ago or something?
17, 18, yeah.
And that was a wild experience, right?
Truly. It's funny now, thinking of just like how different that company was, both in terms of the product we were building, the audience we were building it for, even the structure of the company itself is just like so wildly different from I think what we both do now.
I feel like we both had a reaction.
Yeah, I think maybe we went the polar opposite of consumer photo editing.
Seriously, when I came out of Self-Made, I don't know if you did this, but I wrote down, I was like, okay, here are all the things that I took away from that experience. Some of which were good, but some of which were like, okay, I'm not doing that again. I'm not going to make that specific mistake when starting a company again. And so Warp is definitely like a little bit of a reaction, to be honest.
Yeah. It's funny though, because there have been a few moments over the past, especially over the past like 2-3 years, like Lenza. So Self-Made was, we were doing photo editing and the goal was to make it work with deep learning, but obviously deep learning wasn't good enough at that time, so we were connecting the photos to a network of editors around the world who are actually on Photoshop, like making the updates. And there've been a few moments with like Lenza and some of these other apps where I think about like, wow, what if only we'd started that like 3 years later or something, it would have been a totally different story potentially.
Totally. I mean, the problem that we were trying to solve is a problem that is, I think, kind of worth solving, but also just has a purely technical solution at this point.
Yeah.
Not like a one that requires building like an extensive marketplace of photo editors overseas, which is, what we do.
Doing the hardest possible.
Most operationally intensive way of doing a startup, which is, that was one of the lessons that I took away. I was like, okay, I'm going to build a software business. No ops. No, thank you. Not interested in that.
Yeah. Similarly had a fairly strong reaction to both the category we were in, building for consumers, and the nature of the business. I think building something that was so ops heavy, it was fascinating on the one hand, but on the other hand, it was just added so many layers of complexity to the business and of the surface area that we needed to build for in the product. Like having all these different players that had to all have their own product surface area. It's so much cleaner to just be building like purely for one end user, and especially like building purely for developers, because we can just build the product that we want to use ourselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. At Warp, we have a little bit of prosumer attraction, I would say, like people who are vibe coders who are not pure developers, and it brings back some memories to me of Self-Made actually, because they're just like when people are purchasing a thing and it's not tied to like deep economic value, it's harder. It's like there's this thing I learned at Self-Made where it's like the customers who kind of pay the least want the most.
Yes.
And so it's, from a business strategy standpoint, it's one of the reasons we're trying more and more to be enterprise focused, or just like we really want people using Warp for use cases that are tied to a ton of economic value.
Yeah.
And like, Self-Made, we had people who were, small business owners, or sometimes like
Well, it started with like pure social media influencers, and then it kind of we tried to kind of find our way to
where is there some real value?
Yeah, where's their money? Like where's somebody who's actually like generating like clear value with this, and then we went to small businesses, and then we tried to go up market from there. But
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I took a lot of lessons from that.
Yeah,
no ops being a big one, software being a big one. Another one for me was just like building in a space that I care about the problem.
Yes.
Like, for you too.
So, yeah. I mean, I was like interested in that space, but it was, and I think that had almost been a reaction from. I think I've had the pendulum swing a couple times where I'd come from like Square and Oscar Health, so I'd been in like payments and healthcare, and then wanted to do something that was like a little more fun and consumery.
That was fun.
Yeah. But yeah, I think then similarly have wanted to then do something that wasn't where it's directly related to like things that like I'm interested in do every day, and that ties to like clear value.
Yep. How's Graphite going?
It's been really exciting. I'm sure you've had a similar story in the past. Just the acceleration of the past year and a half of how much AI is now changing the way software is built. It's meaning that more software is being written than ever, which has meant that there are more PRs at every company and more code that needs to be reviewed and tested and deployed. And for us, both in terms of that as just a general like tailwind, and then also in the capabilities it's given us in terms of being able to review PRs with AI now and automate more and like augment humans in the code review process. That's dramatically accelerated our business. And both of us kind of started before the AI era, and now AI software development has made what we're working on far more important than ever before.
Yeah, I mean, I have this theory that code review is gonna be the new bottleneck. Like it's always
I think it is already.
It's always kind of been the bottleneck actually when I've been working as an engineer. In fact, I've always just hated waiting for people to review my code. But the reason I think it's going to be more and more of a problem is because you have more and more agents writing code.
Yes.
And there's going to be a flood of agent-written PRs that need quality control.
Yes.
And some version of like, can you trust this code to submit it? And code review feels like the natural, maybe not the only way of ensuring quality, but like, how are you all thinking of that? I think it's a cool place to be in terms of like code review is going to be the major bottleneck.
Yeah. It's both. I think we already hear from many of our enterprise customers that it is the bottleneck now with all of these agents, where if every engineer has 10 Claude Code windows open, they're just generating a volume of code that's never been seen before. And now everyone is spending most of their time on the engineering team reviewing agentic PRs versus like writing them. For quality, though, I think similarly, it's meant that there's more code, but it's in general like less good in many cases than previously. So there's more need to do code review. I also think with the shift from the IDE to background agents, that's like just starting to happen now, and I think that will even further accentuate the problem where now all of a sudden you're prompting these agents that are writing PRs on and like generating code on remote compute. And then the thing they give you back is the PR, and that becomes the place where you have to like inspect that change, iterate on it. Like I think one of our core theses and what we've been building towards now with chat is like, how do we make the PR page more, or the PR itself, like a place where you're building and iterating more so than just like validating and approving.
If you can share product wise, like what are some of the things that you all are doing to make it more comprehensible or for a human reviewer, and maybe also just like less drudgery? I don't like reviewing PRs from people, and I really don't like reviewing them from agents.
Yep. Yeah. So we've done a few things on this. I think for one, we started from the whole stack PRs workflow from Meta, and you had like dependent change lists from Google. Similar idea of like, originally we were giving tools to humans to break up their changes into smaller pieces. So it's much easier to review a 100-line PR than a 1,000-line PR, and you do and there's like the whole meme of like 10 lines, like 10 comments, 500 lines looks good to me. Like the longer the change, the lower quality of the review in general. So we started from that world of how do we make code review or make changes more easier to review and more comprehensible. we're doing the same thing for agents now with our MCP, where we're basically teaching, we give agents the tools to work with stacks and create stack PRs. So instead of, I think agents are particularly bad right now. I don't know if you've seen this, where they're particularly bad at just doing massive changes all in one.
Yep.
And teaching them to stack has been one way to just make review more comprehensible for humans and efficient. A couple other things that we've done, we have the Graphite agent chat bar in the PR page now. So the Graphite agent will review your PR when you put it up, but then you can also work with it. So you can ask it to like update things. You can ask it to walk you through the change. We have a code tours feature that's shipping soon, where we organize the change by into categories that make sense, or sections where we can say, maybe you change a function definition here, and then you like change a few places where it's called, and we collapse those and group those in the PR instead of it just being like alphabetical order in GitHub. So that's like only scratching the surface of I think what we can do there, but
yep.
I think there's a lot more of using intelligence to like make PRs more comprehensible.
How much of code review do you think will be done by an agent versus done by a human?
Our view on this is like humans are going to be in the loop for a long time. As long as there's a human who's accountable for the end result of the code change, you need somebody to approve it. What likely happens though is that code review becomes less and less code centric and more like functionality and even potentially prompt centric, where what you're reviewing is less, you're less like inspecting the code and more looking at what was the artifact that was produced. Like you're playing around with it in a preview environment. You're looking at the history of like what was all the context that went into this, and did it actually accomplish the thing you set out to?
Yeah.
What's your thought on that?
Yeah, my thought is there's going to be a place for humans and agentic code review. We're building things for like the actual primary workflow that we're building right now is for humans to review agent generated code, but in the inner loop as opposed to in the GitHub loop.
Yeah.
With the idea being that like if you have an agent writing your code as a human author and you're doing it interactively, which so I think there's going to be a shift to doing more background stuff, but if you're doing it interactively, actually a really important workflow right now is like you ask an agent to do something, it gives you a diff, you review it and you do that loop before you even push it up to GitHub or whatever, to have a human or another agent look at it. So I don't think that replaces the like GitHub or Graphite oriented like outer loop PR review, but I think actually there's a place for this new inner loop code review that is something we're investing a bunch in.
How are you thinking about that from a product standpoint? Like what does that look like in work?
Yeah, so this is I think one of the cooler things that we're doing. So when you run an agent in Warp, a coding agent, let's say, or this will even work if you run Claude Code, what we've built in is I think the primary other view that you want besides the running agent log is actually a diff view.
Yep.
And so you get a running diff of the changes that the agent has made. And as a developer, that lets you like understand as the code is being generated what's happening. So rather than like walking away for an hour and coming back to 10,000 lines of code, you like watch it get written. And then it also gives you a chance, like literally in an interface that kind of looks like a code review interface, to be like, okay, I want to attach these 4 comments and then resubmit them to the agent to address what we're doing. Yeah. So I think that's actually going to be like a pretty common inner loop workflow that is, I think, complementary to the outer loop code review workflow. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's interesting how these interfaces have kind of flipped back and forth between being like more code centric and more prompt centric. And then it sounds like you're kind of going for, you think there's like a good hybrid here where you can kind of see the diffs being formed. And
so my feeling on this is like vibe coding, as people think about it, it doesn't work on production code.
Yes.
Like just full stop. Like and actually what we find is when we go to enterprises, I'm curious if it's the same for you, it's like real developers struggle to use these tools to make actual code changes. You can waste a lot of time. You end up with stuff that's buggy. You don't understand it. And so our focus, since we really are trying to improve pro dev workflows, is like, how do you make the process of working with agents on real code bases comprehensible? And I think you need some of these, like, let me show you the code, let me show you the diff, let you comment on the diff type things. Let me do a really, really great plan up front.
Yep.
And I don't think that's like in total conflict with background agents, which are gonna like one shot simple things.
Right.
But I think for like the bread and butter work that I'm doing on an app like Warp, or I'm sure for you all on an app like Graphite, it's like, I don't want engineers on our team being like, make this change and I'm not going to tell you how to do it. Yep. I want engineers like planning and proving that they did it the right way. And so that's like what we're focused on.
Yeah, there's almost, I think, some world where the agent is kind of walking you through the changes it's making as it's doing them and explaining those steps. And then you have a way to almost like live reviewing it and like kind of guiding it in the right direction.
It's like really, really tight pairing.
Yeah.
Which isn't like as sexy of a concept as like automate your software developer or whatever. But I just don't think that's where we're at with the technology. It's not, we're there for like make a website.
Yeah.
But we're not there for like make a change on an app.
Complicated surgical change in a production system.
Exactly. And I don't know how close we are, but I think right now I want all engineers on our team owning the work product, which means understanding it.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely true of like, you need to going back to like what I was saying earlier, like as long as there's a human who's accountable for what is the impact to the customer on this, like what is the product that you're actually shipping, like in many regulated industries, there's like a lot of, you like review is, I mean, even for like SOC 2, it's like code review is mandatory by humans. Like you want to have some, responsibility for like who, and some accountability for like what ends up happening, especially if there's like user implications for it.
100%.
How do you think that the idea of kind of like pairing and guiding agents, like how do you square that with a lot of there's a lot of like excitement right now around like parallel agents of having, how do you have like 5 or 10 different agents all building things at once? Like at some point your bandwidth for guiding them all, I mean, it becomes almost an exercise in like engineering management of like, do you have to like one-on-one with all of your agents or what does that look like?
So my view of the world here is that there's going to be 2 kinds of agentic development, at least for the, I don't know, next few years. I wouldn't go beyond that. One is like interactive agents.
Yep.
Where a developer is sitting there and like their max parallelism is maybe like running like 3 or 4 of these on their local machine. It's just like beyond that, your human context window is jammed up. You can't do. But I do think there's also going to be ambient agents or background agents, which are sort of doing like things off of system triggers that are easier.
It's like I get an error log, I pick that up, I go fix
the
problem.
There was a null pointer exception. Let an agent take a first stab at that. Or a user issue came in and let an agent take a first stab. And so I don't think those things are contradictory. I think those will both exist. And I think for me, the most interesting thing about the background ones, like our approach to this is to let developers program them essentially. So you can create your own workflows for this type of thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that those will both exist. What do you think?
I mean, maybe one slight like difference in views that we have is just the timeline on which this happens of like, do background agents become the primary mode of engineering on a 1-year time horizon? Is that like a 2 or 3 year time horizon? Like, I think our view is we're kind of intentionally building for, I don't know with certainty. I certainly think that for more like AI pilled companies, they will become the primary means of engineering like in a year or so, maybe a little longer. Our view is like we should just be building towards that world anyways, where background agents are doing most of the work, and then like build the PR page that we would want when that exists, because we'll be there before we know it, and possibly there's a model jump that happens that gets us there sooner. I do certainly see like the IDE sticking around for a long time. I think I think there will be a local experience. It's just a question of at what point, at what rate does like background replace local, and it seems like your bet is very much like local remains relevant for a long time yet.
I think at least for like a couple of years, which is like not that long.
It's an eternity in startup time, though.
What's that? Yeah, I think so. Even if the mechanism of like if all the infrastructure for background agents becomes good, there's still this fundamental limit to me around expressing intent and just having like an iteration loop that's tight.
Yeah.
Let's say that the agents are really, really good, even like the models get better, you still are going to have this problem where it's like, I don't think I want to be doing things that are like multi-turn engineering projects on an outer loop. Like I want something with really, really tight feedback. And so I still think like the more complex or ambiguous product things, maybe you can get there with background agents doing that. But I don't know. The premise of background agents to me is more like you have low ambiguity, high volume tasks. Whereas when I build something, and I still code, my team doesn't want me to, but I still code.
They haven't locked you out yet.
The way that I code, it's like an iterative process of like, okay, I thought it was this, I coded it, and then I realized, no, it shouldn't work like that. But from a product and engineering perspective. And so the faster I can like learn that, the better for me.
Yeah. I think maybe one of our views on this is that we should make the inner and outer loop collapse together.
You can collapse them. I think
you can collapse them, and you can make the outer loop like, I think right now, you say like outer loop and you think like, super heavy tests. Like
I hate it. It's like, it kicks off a CI, like a GitHub action, and then like 12 minutes later, I'm like, it failed on a flaky test.
I don't think
I can't work like that.
I don't think you need all of that though.
Okay.
Like I think that like any good engineer should be like running their code, making sure that it works, like doing some like basics level of validation before you hand it off to to like the full CI battery. And one thing we're thinking about is like, can we have like a more progressive approach to like testing and validation, where the first thing is just the agent tries to run the code, like does it build properly, like does it do the things that it's supposed to do, and then if those things fail, then you can iterate from there. Maybe at that point you check in with the human like accountable author of this and have them play around with it before. Like I think it becomes a little bit more iterative before you say like, okay, like functionality is good, let's proceed to like the like full testing battery and merge process.
I buy that. I mean, I guess the inner outer loop thing doesn't matter to me as much as like I feel like product development is still going to be an iterative process, not a one-shottable in general thing. And
absolutely.
So whatever is going to enable that is what makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that's why we're trying to make the PR page feel like more iterative. I mean, it's always
you're bringing aspects of the local.
Yeah, we're trying to make it feel
to the cloud,
and I think in some ways the ideal might be you start in like an IDE, like you're in Cursor or something, and you have your chat history, and then ideally like that same that history from any tool you're using through integrations like ends up in the PR as well, and you can just pick up where you left off, and you have all the same context. And
how do you know if what you've built works though? Like that to me is the hard part.
I think
that's all outer loop.
Like, that is the hardest part, and I think it's interesting that I think now there's such an emphasis on how do we get all the right context for the agent to validate a change. Like how do we connect to do you have to connect to Figma, Notion, Slack threads, like Linear, like all these other places where that context is stored. But I think one thing we're learning is even in those places, like it's not necessarily clear like what the change is supposed to accomplish, even for humans. I think we're seeing like AI is in some way like exposing the limits of like human communication and our ability to articulate things that are that are a little bit more like subjective or at least like just assumed or innate.
I think that's what it's going to boil down to is like humans don't even know what they want a lot of the time. I kind of think there's a place for both. That's the bet we're making, is that you want one like control plane for things that need to run locally and like the exact same interface for things that are running in the cloud. Makes sense to me.
Do you think that will still be, even as we move to more background agents, like do you think that control plane is still a terminal? Is that like web? Like how do you see that evolving?
So if you want to like start with the existing apps like terminal and IDE, I think the agent, the right form factor is much closer to a terminal to me than it is an IDE. Like I actually think like things like Claude Code or Codex CLI or Warp like validate that's actually a better form factor, because it's all about this linear view of what's an agent doing. You can multi-thread agents, it has the right context. So I'm not super bullish on IDEs. I don't think it's literally a terminal though either. Yeah. Like this goes back to Warp's original thesis, which was like the terminal as a application sucks. It's very, very limited in terms of just being like this like stodgy text only thing. So my thesis is like the form factor looks like a terminal, but it should be modernized and geared towards agents, and like it's going to have aspects of an IDE. It's going to have aspects of like a workflow management system, and I think like build the right product for the new workflow is my attitude on this. Not like anchor too hard on like terminal or IDE.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
how does your team use like AI coding agents? And
I was going to ask you this too.
Yeah. How have you approached that? How have you approached like that transition? And I mean, I think for us, there's been a pretty wide spectrum of levels of adoption, and everyone now uses like AI coding tools of some sort on the team. But there's from like just using like cursor tab all the way to like running 10 Claude Code background agents. There's like a very wide range of levels of AI pilled that you can be there. Like how has that been for your team?
Every development test should start with a prompt. Doesn't necessarily need to finish with one.
Yeah.
In fact, like I want to give our engineers like judgment around like, hey, if you're going in circles or this is a waste of time or generating bad code, stop.
Yeah.
Do something else. I want people doing it first in Warp. If they can't succeed, I'm happy for them to try and do it in a competitor tool. And like, what do we learn from that? I want them posting successes and failures. And this is like existential for us because our product is in this space.
Yeah.
And so as like a dog food mechanism, in addition to just like, I actually think it in a lot of cases will truly make us go faster.
Yeah.
That's something that I've pushed for. I would say at first, like there was most resistance among senior developers on the team, although that's like flipped a little bit now. And actually the senior developers have become pretty good at using these tools.
Yeah.
And we actually kind of have a reverse problem now where like, I worry that new developers on the team or early career developers are like over reliant on them.
Yeah, and like haven't learned the fundamentals because
they haven't learned the code base. They maybe need to develop more as engineers. And so we've like refined the way the mandate works to be like, you're not allowed to like do what I call outcome-based prompting. So I don't want people prompting to like build me a feature that does XYZ. I want people prompting in 2 steps. One is to like understand the code around, and then the prompt should tell the agent how to do the engineering.
Yep.
Is like what we've moved towards.
You're just much more, much more like imperative prompting of like
because it's created a real problem where we have people, really smart people who join the team who felt like they were like using these tools as a bit of a crutch, and then that actually slowed us down.
Yeah.
It's like
they're
not learning,
right,
and so you have to like really, I think, like use these tools in a way that increases your knowledge, not that decreases it.
Yeah, like a lot of people talk about code reviews being a point of like validation and quality control, and like it's certainly that is a lot of value. But I think perhaps even more important than that is just it is a point of understanding and knowledge sharing on teams, and for reviewers to be able to see like what's going into the code base and understand the change, and having even for us just having like the Graphite agent chat where you can ask Graphite like walk me through this change, or even pull up other parts of the code base or other PRs that are relevant here, and just being able to like use it as a tool for understanding as much as one for like either authoring or validating, I think is really important.
Have you all factored these tools into your hiring process at all? Like when people do interviews, are they using coding, like AI coding tools to prevent that, encourage it?
We've had like some portions of the interview around like algorithms that where we say like you can't use these tools. But for most of it, we encourage it. We encourage it pretty actively because we think engineers are going to be using this day to day, and we want to make sure that we're kind of reflecting the way that engineers are actually building software today in the interviews. Like, how have you approached it?
So right now we don't allow it. We've talked about actually doing a new interview session where we ask people to do it. We have like a pretty significant cheating problem. I don't know if you've seen this, which is wild, where it's like, I haven't been in one of these interviews, but our engineers will probably, okay, this person was clearly looking to the side of the screen and they like got the answer like immediately, but had no idea why.
Right,
it was like, so that's been an interesting thing. But no, like I still want people who are like strong CS generalists,
Absolutely.
like more than anything. And I find that the hiring of those people is like as hard as ever, if not harder. I don't know what you.
Yeah, I agree that I think it's both now harder to screen for them because of all these tools, and it's also as competitive as it's ever been, I think, in terms of getting great talent.
Yeah, and have you found any decreased need for engineers based on?
No, we're very much the opposite, where I think we've both with the rate of growth of the business and also just the scope that AI has unlocked for us on like how do we integrate agent into like all the different parts of the outer loop. And like there's so much we can build around resolving merge conflicts, and we have the agent able to resolve CI failures for a lot of the big providers now, and it's opened up like a massive like surface area of product for us to build. So
Totally.
if anything, I think it's we've accelerated our hiring plans and have tried to hire more engineers because we just see such a massive opportunity. And like, I mean, I'm sure you feel this even more so than we do, like the competitive pressure in this space right
So
now
high.
is just is insane. Like I don't think I've ever seen a market like or any dynamic that looks like this before, where everyone is trying to build like the same thing. We're all kind of running towards the same surface areas. There's so much energy focused on like what does the future of software engineering look like, that we feel like we just need to build as fast as possible now. And I'm sure you probably
We're the same. We're trying to hire as quickly as we possibly can while keeping the same bar that we've always had.
Yeah.
And yeah, the competitive pressure is nuts. Like how are you looking at, like, what are the competitive dynamics for you all specifically?
It's interesting for us because whenever someone asks me like who's Graphite's biggest competitor, it's always hard to answer that question because we do so much, and we span, I think our either incredibly stupid or incredibly smart bet on all of this is that by kind of building the entire pull request lifecycle, we'll have something that's like much more differentiated and integrated and durable than just building one piece of it. But it's a ton of surface area to build, and I think we have competitors at each point in the process. Like there are companies that just build a merge queue. There's a ton of companies that are like just trying to build like the AI reviewer agents that plug into GitHub now. Like I feel like every single company is releasing one of those. Like Vercel just launched one. Sentry has one. Like there's so many of these AI reviewers. And then even on the PR page itself, I think like Linear's getting interested in this space. Like Codex has like their kind of review interface. Like there's like everyone is now thinking about like what is that. They see that as being such an important control surface. So it's both like nice that we do a bit of it, we do kind of everything in one, and that it makes it hard for anyone to compete with us directly. But at the same time, it means that we're fighting battles on like many fronts at once, and that's that difficult to know kind of where do we really focus our team on, and in this crazy dynamics.
How do you think about like long-term differentiation, building a moat, that type of thing?
So building on top of GitHub has been one of the nicest and hardest parts of what we do.
You have this platform you're dependent on.
Yeah, we were like the platform dependency. We do a ton of work to like sync. We sync like millions and millions of PRs, and think of like every single CI event and every single like comment emoji reaction, like every single event like that, we're syncing.
Is it a bi-directional sync?
Yes. Everything syncs bidirectionally. Like yes,
that is crazy.
We've gone super deep on the GitHub sync side of it, which I think is like one of our great technical moats, is the fact that like there have been a few companies that have tried to build like every YC batch there's like a new like Graphite clone competitor, and you see this funny thing that happens where they go at it for a month or two, and then they quickly realize that GitHub sync is just incredibly difficult to build, and then they pivot to making a Chrome extension or something because it's just not a problem that a team of that scale can take on. So I think that's one of our great moats. Obviously, we're good partners with GitHub. Like we work with them on a lot of their largest customers, so that relationship has been a good one. But obviously, like building on top of another platform, there's always a challenge. You guys just launched, I guess it's only in the past few months, or when the big like Warp agents launched, like that. It seems like that has been pretty transformational for the way that your user, both for like your growth and for the way that users are interacting with the product. Like, how has that changed things? Like, what was it that really like caught fire with that?
Yeah, so for most of Warp's history, as we were focused on just being like better
modern
terminal.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about the modern terminal angle to start was we got a lot of users.
Yes.
Now, we couldn't really monetize them very well. That was always the challenge. And so what we started building these like agentic features into Warp. I don't know, when did ChatGPT come out? Like end of 2022.
Yeah.
So we had like a chat panel in like right after that, like a month after that, and then we're like, okay, chat panel's sort of stupid because the terminal is like a chat interface almost. And so we launched something that was a much more native AI integration pretty shortly after. But everyone thought of us as a terminal. Most people, I don't know if most, but a lot of people still think of us as a terminal, maybe an AI terminal.
Yeah.
But we realized that like that's like very limiting in terms of the types of use cases that people think to use us for relative to like what you actually can do in Warp. And so we did a big, not a pivot because the product didn't really change, but a repositioning from calling ourselves a terminal to calling ourselves a ADE or agentic development environment.
Yeah.
And that like worked. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. We did that. People were like, oh, I can use it like this more. We started getting like a different mix of users come in. And if you like look at like the cohort curves for people using AI features in Warp, it went like this, like higher and higher.
Yeah.
That's been transformational on like the revenue growth side because the AI is what people are willing to pay for.
Yeah.
But our overall strategy, it's like we're still trying to attract people who want a better terminal.
Yeah.
It's like all one funnel. And the fact that we have this really nice, totally different user interface for the terminal, I think we got kind of lucky, but the terminal is becoming like the center of the agentic development space. And so it just kind of works very, very well.
As
like one big funnel. Yeah.
We had a similar kind of transformation where we initially, a lot of our users were, and much of what we were building was just how do you like do stack PRs on GitHub and all of the the CLI, the review interface, like basically all the pieces that you need in order to use that workflow in particular. And I think similarly we had an initial cohort of users that was just here for stacking and primarily just used the CLI component of it. And that was the first thing we built. If you look at the cohort analysis, similarly, like the very first users like only use the CLI, and then you see like the next wave of users that was adopting like the web dashboard more and the merge queue. And then more recently, a lot of them are coming for like the AI code review and like Graphite agent. And that usage is much higher in that cohort. So it is, it's interesting how we've also similarly had to change our our positioning and user perception of like what do you come to Graphite to do over time. On the AI side of it, one thing we've certainly had thought about and has been a challenge as we've approached like having that be more and more of a core part of the product is like the margin side of it. Like, how do you guys think about that, and like how does that factor into to building the business of Warp?
Yeah, it's really challenging. So when we went more in on AI, we didn't realize the growth we would have. Which is the growth is very good, but it's a very, very expensive service to provide. And so you can play a couple different games. You can play like a heavy subsidization game and just try to like raise.
Land grab, raise money.
We're not really trying to do that. So it just feels like a dangerous game to me. It feels dangerous because I want people who like are willing to pay based on the actual costs of the thing that we're providing, right? So we're not really going that route. And so then the question is like, what are the levers that we can like do to improve the margins? And it's things like we be more efficient with the models. So there's like some aspect of like model routing. It's changing the pricing structure. We've been traditionally very like, you get like a fixed request subscription, which has a problem in the sense of like the more people utilize it, the less money we make, and we make more money when people don't utilize it. And so we're having to switch to consumption-based pricing. And I think by the time this comes out, we'll probably actually have like more fully made that switch.
Interesting.
So, and we'll see how it goes. It's going to be like, there's some set of users who don't really care about like the finer points of these tools and view them as like a commodity product. I don't think that's the majority, but those users I expect may churn. And then like we want to compete based on having the best developer experience and something that people really want to pay a premium for. And that's the bet we're making.
I think there is sort of a winner's curse right now for like whoever has the cheapest.
You can, like everyone who has like the cheapest thing has like a huge growth moment. And then they're like, oh shit! This is incinerating money, and so they have
these users don't actually want to pay for like the real value.
So, again, it's for us. It's like I want all users using Warp, but I really want users using it who have a strong economic use case. And it's like we'll get complaints like, oh, I ran out of my $20 plan and I was running 12 agents for 5 days. What the heck? And I'm like, I'm like, what are you talking? That costs us a fortune.
That means you should upgrade.
And by the way, like if you're doing the work of like 5 engineers with that's got to be worth more than $20 to you. Yeah.
It is interesting how even I think the $200 plans are a good start here, but there is still this like massive gap between the value creation and the value capture.
By the way, the $200 plan's our biggest money loser.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? It's like it's like the
that's because you get the most like the most AI pilled highest consumption users.
It matches. So it's funny if you look at our team, Warp's team. All the engineers on the team use Warp, obviously, but the person who is by far the most expensive and heaviest user of Warp on our team is one of our talent partners, who like has used it to build like this crazy greenhouse integration that we can like never launch.
Yeah,
that's like hundreds of thousands of lines of code, and he just like reprompts. I feel like cool, but that's actually not our ICP.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thinking about like being we both started companies previously. We were both like we worked together at Selfmade. Like, what did you kind of take from past experiences in terms of designing? Like, what does the role of CEO look like for you, and then how has that evolved over time as you've gone through like so much growth recently?
One of the things from Selfmade that I took away, I'm curious if you did too, is like I want to be really intentional about the culture and the process at Warp. And so even before I started the company, I wrote up this sort of like how we work guide, which I've published, which I try to keep up to date. And it's like everything from our values to our product principles to coding standards, to how we communicate. And so I found that like having that stuff written down public so that people who might want to work at Warp see it and can
they
like
can
opt
self-select
in.
out
Self-select in or out. That's been really good. To the question of like how has my job changed, like I'm curious how you conceive of your job, but to me it's like at any given moment what can I be doing that's going to be highest impact for the success of the business, and like that keeps changing. Like when it was 5 people, maybe I was going to be writing some code and that was going to be helpful. We're 50 people now, but for me, it's like where I can add a lot of value is on the product definition side. It's being out in public for Warp. It's being part of the sales process where it makes sense. It's it's using the product actually and giving feedback on it. So it's always changing, but the question on my mind is like at any given moment, how can I be most impactful?
And I think for me, the way I've thought about it is, in the beginning, when you're looking for product market fit in like early days, like the product is just the only thing that really matters, and getting like your job is to like build the best possible product, and a lot of that may be like you being hands-on, like writing code or like writing down like how this should work and making sure that you get it to that point, iterating with the team. And then over time, I think it's shifted for me. Now I think about it as how do I design like the company that builds the product, or like the factory that builds, and it's less about ideally if there's something that comes out of the factory that doesn't look right, it's less about like how do I fix this one thing. It's more how do I go change, like make sure that we have the right tools and processes and people in place and the right roles, and everybody knows like how to properly express like what we want to build, or like is building the right thing. And if I can make edits at that level of abstraction versus like just fixing, going in and point fixing the product itself, like that's much more of like what I think is like high leverage for me.
That's really smart. I should think more like that actually. I like that conception of like designing the factory and like making sure all the inputs are right. Yeah, that's good.
I similarly have like shifted a lot of my attention towards like go to market and being like the public face and like voice of Graphite, and being going to conferences and talking about what we're doing, like going to meet with customers like all over the place. Like I think a lot of that role, and I think one thing that's hard now is like how do you balancing like the external and the internal demands simultaneously. I think it's hard enough to be getting that, like fine tuning that product, or like getting that right, getting your company right. And then also like having to balance that with all the external demands of the role. I think that's been something that like I'm always like trying to figure out what's the right mix of those two.
Have you been on a horse?
I have not been on. I've read some mean tweets about us, but I've not been on a horse.
Yeah, I mean that's how you know you're at a different company stage, when you're doing a product announcement on a horse. But yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, the mean tweets, man. Developers are tough.
Developers are savage. I mean,
So
they're like wonderful and savage at the same time.
Yeah,
right?
no,
Because it's like
I get it.
Yeah, it's like and I mean, we were on the other side of these problems.
Totally.
It's
No,
like,
I would be the one who's like, why does this work this way?
This is so broken.
Sucks.
Like, who designed this?
Yeah.
Like, who did this? This person should be fired.
Do
Like,
you get Hacker News hate? Like, we get.
oh yeah. And a lot of it is, I think, users that want it to be completely free, that don't like. This is something we constantly think about: is like, how much should we like work with open standards and
Sure.
really like we want to obviously to like we want to be as open as we can be. We want to like make these workflows accessible to everyone, but at the same time we also want to like build a sustainable business, and we can't necessarily give away the entire thing. Or
that's a tough sell on Hacker News.
Yeah.
The subtlety of the trade-offs is not
right. It's not there's not much sympathy for
no, that's not what it's about there. But I actually think that the controversy has been helpful to Warp.
I think you need I mean, even we saw this with our billboards that we just did. Like, there was a tweet that went viral where someone posted a picture of it and they said like, "God, I hate San Francisco." And then there was this like this like battle ensued of like, then the first reply was like, "No, actually that's a fire billboard." And then people were like arguing about it. But that's how you get like,
I think you want that.
Yeah.
I think you want like the worst failure mode is no one cares.
yeah. Right, it's like like and even with something like billboards especially, it's like the expectation is crickets. Like nobody will, like, how many times does somebody like take a photo of a billboard like consciously? It's like it needs to do something in order to like
we did a meme billboard.
Yeah.
So I didn't even understand the meaning of the meme, but people on my team were like, "Oh no, this is great." And then people in San Francisco were like, they were taking pictures and tweeting it and being like, "What the fuck's going on?" but it was good for us. Yeah.
How has that been like letting kind of like been making decisions like that of like, okay, I'm gonna be on a horse, I'm gonna be like, we're gonna have this billboard, like letting go on these things.
I like love, like, I guess it's not my natural disposition to be like,
right. It was like I couldn't. I think there was a moment of disbelief, like when I saw that video. I was like,
I was literally
like, is this AI generated?
This was on the same lot where they filmed that Tarantino movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like an actual Western lot. I was actually on a horse. I don't know. My attitude is like, it should be kind of fun doing this.
Yeah.
Like, don't take it too seriously. Like, as long as if it's like authentic and funny, and like some people might not like it or some people might love it. I was like, I think it's good.
And I think especially in an era where in DevTools in particular, there've been so many like just sterile, boring brands. It's like the same thing.
I'm
it's like
sitting on a chair in an office.
Yeah.
Here's my product demo. Like, so we're trying to like make it a little more fun.
Yeah. I think we've enjoyed doing that too with like our events and marketing. Like we're trying to do something that feels like much more interesting and that's feels almost more like what would like a consumer brand do? Like
what would a consumer brand do?
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's been fun. That's been just fun for us.